All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to today's podcast. We
Hi, guys.
have a very special. You want to do that again? Let's go ahead. Let's do that again. What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. We have a really incredible guest, but before we get to that, we want to let you know that Dead Man's Beard Co. is a sponsor of this podcast. If you want incredible beard oils, you want to look as good as Jay and half as good as me, then check out deadmansbeardco.com. 15% if you use the code HEAVY15 off of your first initial order. Jay, you got anything to add?
I love it. I really do. I did my beard 2 days ago, and it still looks fantastic.
Lush,
Normally, I have to do it every day, but I used all their product, and it's holding nice, and it looks good, and it's soft like a... Yeah.
Soft like your penis after a long night.
Not even a long night. Soft after my penis when I wake up in the morning. God, I miss morning boners.
Anyway, Dead Man's Beard Co. Use the code HEAVY15 for 15% off all your orders.
Yeah.
All right, so today we have a very special guest coming in. You've seen him on Joe Rogan. He has his own podcast. He teaches classes on history and Native American studies. His name is Daniele Bolelli, host of the History on Fire podcast, also The Drunken Taoist. Like I said, it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Hopefully he doesn't figure out that we are literally stupid.
Oh, God, I hope.
Yeah, so enjoy the episode.
Yeah. And I think it's Danielle, not Danelli. Is it Danelli?
See, that's where I've heard it pronounced both ways.
Nice research.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
All right, welcome to this. Like, I'm so excited and looking forward to it. Welcome to Get Heavy Podcast. Two geniuses. Interview.
Daniele Bolelli or Danielle Bolelli.
Yeah,
Either one. Pick
Either
it.
way, you guys figure it out. We
Enjoy
won't.
the episode.
Yes.
I feel out of place though. I lack the proper length of beard.
You got the
to,
right haircut,
like,
though. You
yeah.
definitely got the right haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in that club, but I'm
Yeah.
missing on the second
He's in
step.
denial still.
Yeah,
He's still trying to rock a little bit
Yeah,
of hair.
I'm getting there.
It's quickly, rapidly going towards the back.
It
You
is.
know, it was funny. It's like for the longest time, it was just that awful patchy thing. And like the only reason why I kept it that way is because my daughter didn't want me to cut my hair.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, I don't give a crap. So if you don't want to,
Yeah,
that's
don't
fine.
matter.
And
Yeah.
like I'll look stupid, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got the okay from her, and then I was like, okay, now I can shave my head.
Yeah.
And,
See, I've had the exact opposite. My wife has seen me twice shaved ever. She met me with a
Yeah.
beard. I shaved it once, and she's all, it's not great.
No.
It's not great down there.
No.
You know
I
what I mean?
see.
So you can grow that back.
that's fun.
I did it once.
Yeah.
And I've had a beard since I was like 13. So. And the only time I'd ever shave was when I'd go to court.
Right.
But I shaved it. I had to do a fit test for work,
Yeah.
and I shaved it clean, shaved it
Right.
all off. I didn't say nothing to anybody. I shaved my mustache
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
I went.
the whole thing.
Nobody recognized me.
Of course.
I walked into her salon that she worked at the time. I walked into the salon, and one of the hairstylists there was like, "Hey, can I help you, sir?" I'm like, "Joey, it's me, Jay." What the?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
and then
funny.
she very sweetly and nicely and said, "I don't do that again.
Just
You're
no.
good.
Don't do it again."
Like good.
And I went,
Fair,
"Okay,
fair.
I'm good enough. Works for me."
Yeah.
And I have not shaved it, not once.
Ever
Yeah.
since.
Nah,
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
it. I'm good.
Yeah. I have very little superpowers, but one is just having a beard.
That,
it.
That's one of them. That's a good one.
Everything else I struggle
Yeah.
with.
You
But
can hide things in there, contraband stuff.
oh,
It's like,
100%, yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
yeah, when I smoked pot, I could hide joints.
Exactly.
Easily.
Just like-
Yeah.
You know.
You can do like a black beer kind of thing with like at the end of the beer toward, and instead of having the candles, you can have the joints there.
Yeah, there you
and,
go.
That
Yeah,
would
for
work.
sure. Yeah, especially jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? It's like I used to braid my so I used to roll with John
Yep.
up there at Ojai
Yep.
Valley.
Yep.
Which did you were up there? Did you roll up
I
there?
came at the beginning of the pandemic, so that's when it
Okay.
closed down.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I roll like now with Will.
Oh, you roll with
yeah,
Will?
Yeah,
That
stuff,
guy's a
so-
little I rolled with him the other day. He beat my ass.
It
dude.
did him.
God, yeah, he's
Yeah.
well because I remember him as a little
Yeah.
dude. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? Like
No, he's
he
big
wasn't
now.
a
He's a
little
big
guy, but
no,
he
he's
was,
a big guy now.
yeah, no, he beat my ass 6 ways to Sunday, dude.
Will
he
is-
got me to crucifix. It actually pissed me off.
Yeah, Will is funny because he rolls in a way that's so half of the time he doesn't give a crap. So he's just rolling. Like he lets you do things and you're like, are we rolling or not? Because
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
he's so non-competitive. And then sometimes he turns it on and then he falls back to sleep. And then so you're like, it's confusing. You never know what you're going to
You don't know which will you're getting.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, dude. Seriously.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're obviously huge fans of your
Yes.
work. We listen to both your podcasts pretty consistently, so.
Thank you guys
When,
for having me.
Yeah, History on Fire is absolutely one of my favorite podcasts.
Today I got a new one for you today.
Oh,
I
really?
have the end of this series I'm doing on John Brown.
Okay.
So there's the
Yeah, yeah.
third and last episode that just
Okay.
came out today.
I won't listen to them until they're all done.
Yeah, so now
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
officially
yeah.
done. It's
Yeah.
the third and last. So
Yeah.
you can do the series, and he's a trippy guy.
Yeah.
It was tad intense, but you know.
When I listened to the one you did on Jack Johnson,
Oh yeah.
I've never really
Yeah.
it just happened to listen to
Yeah.
it. And then when you started getting into the weeds on what kind of man he was, like he didn't take no shit.
No.
And at a time where you had to kind of take a lot of shit if you were that dark.
Yeah.
You know, and he took none. Showed up in places with white women and told people to go fuck themselves. Like he was gnarly, man.
he's
You
awesome.
know?
He's
Yeah. I
fantastic.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the thing that, like, when he would go in front of, like, super racist crowds yelling for his death, he goes to do a fight, and he's, like, smiling the entire time. And,
Yeah.
of course, the more he smiled, the more he pissed them off, and he's just like,
Yeah, I don't
la,
care.
la, la.
Yeah.
It's like an early
Not
Floyd
touching
Mayweather
me.
dude.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. It's
Just amazing, man.
Yeah. What? So just kind of getting into some basics. You grew up in Italy, right?
Yep. I lived there till I was 18.
Okay. And then moved out here to go to college or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, Italy's fantastic place to retire.
Yeah.
The food is unreal, and the social life is great.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Terrible place to get stuff done.
Really?
So if you want to make something, not the best place. So, at 18, clearly you want to see a little what else is out there, what else is... last time I went back to Italy this summer, spent a long time there, and I was like, man, I miss this. This is great.
Yeah.
But of course also because I'm in a different phase in my
Yeah.
life.
You're getting older.
It's a different...
Can you relax? Like,
year
are you
or-
able to relax as a human?
Um,
Because so much of us, I'm
Yeah.
such a, I get the same thing, right? If I go on vacation for a week,
Yeah.
which is not long enough, but
Yeah.
it takes me 3 days to be like,
No,
chill,
that
you
is
know?
that's the problem. I think is that's a huge difference between US and Italy. It's like Italy, everybody gets 1 month of vacation in summer. So if you get 1 month of vacation, it takes a while. When you have spent 11 months working like a dog, it's not that suddenly you have free time and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to enjoy. It takes
Yeah.
a second to be like, what the hell am I doing with my days? Like you almost get depressed because you
Totally,
don't know
yeah.
what to do with yourself.
Uh-huh.
And of course, if you have 2 weeks top vacation, you
Right.
spend 1 week switching gear if you're lucky, and then you start having a few days of excitement, and then you're back to work.
Yeah.
If you have a month already, you spend a week or so that way, make it even 10 days. Now you got 20 more to enjoy.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's true.
Different gig.
And if
Yeah.
you have 2 weeks of vacation a year,
Yeah.
and nobody, I don't ever, well, I do, but I work 410, so I'm
Yeah.
able to work it around a lot, and I have a lot of time where I'll take 10 days off. But most people don't
No.
take 2 weeks in a row.
Hell no.
You go, oh, here's a holiday coming up. I'll
I
take
know.
another day on the holiday, and I get 4 days.
Yeah.
And then it's a holiday weekend, so then you're just doing the holiday weekend stuff, and you don't
No, it
ever
says
get to relax.
it's an awful system. I
It
mean,
is.
under
It really
every
is.
way, it's just not built for human beings.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, the month in summer in Italy, then you got Christmas. That's usually
Yeah.
a couple of weeks. Add
Yeah.
another week for Easter. All in all, not that uncommon for most people to have 2 months of vacation a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Big
bad.
difference,
Big
you know?
difference. Big
Big
difference.
difference. And I think that's one thing that, like, my daughter, having grown up here, she was having a hard time with, because, like, we'll go hang out by the beach. And she's like, have a blast one day. And then the next day, she's like, okay, like,
Now
what's
what?
next?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is next. Like in an ideal world, we would
Yeah.
spend 2 months like this,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
laying
Yeah, it's
down.
amazing, man.
You know, you go for a swim, you read a book, you chat with your friend about whatever,
Right.
and you do that nonstop, and
Wow.
that's life. You know, that's how
Yeah.
you recharge your batteries. And
It sounds so fascinating as an American who just grew up knowing that there was no one ever going to help you, and
Yeah.
vacations are a luxury of the
Yeah,
rich.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We went to Hawaii for like 8 days.
Yeah.
And I remember even after 8 days, I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, I'm done. I'm done here. Like, this is
Really?
very nice. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm done. Like,
Really?
well,
You just done, yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
like, I'm like, I've been done.
You haven't
Yeah.
built that muscle for vacations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I love about growing up in Italy.
Yeah.
That like even the poorest person there is, you know, you're not gonna go to the fancy place by the sea.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna go to some super crowded place by the sea where you're elbow to elbow with the next
Right,
guy,
right.
but you still do the same thing. You
Right,
still
yeah.
go out and go on vacation for a month and
Instead
do
of
that.
going to
and-
Ventura, you're going to go to Wainimi.
yeah, It's like- yeah, you know, there's the different
Yeah,
level
there is,
there,
yeah.
but even at the basic one,
Yeah.
you're still going on vacation,
Right,
hanging
yeah.
out by the sea or in the mountains and spending a month that way.
Yeah.
So there's a culture built around that kind of leisure, relaxation, eat good food, chat with your friends. That's so much more human.
Yeah.
So you had at graduating high school, you had to drive to get out here. And did you know you wanted to be like history? I mean, anthropology. What,
No,
you had no idea what you wanted to
primarily I wanted to write, but of course writing is a bitch trying to make a living
Fucking
with,
A.
because it's like any of the arts. It's like you want to be a musician, you want to be an artist, you want to be a writer, you want to be, you know, so clearly not the easiest thing. So my idea was I want to do that in some way or another. And of course, I need to have a plan B to pay the bills, because realistically, I'm not going to be able to rely on. I mean, maybe I get lucky and I get something going, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'll need something else. And so that's where eventually,
Excuse me.
you know, I was in college because I had to, because I needed a visa to stay here.
Right.
I wasn't that crazy about being in college, but I was like, sure, I'll do it, you know, whatever. It's fine enough. And then eventually I was like, you know, I like chatting with people. I like talking about some of these things. I could teach. And
Yeah.
then I realized, oh, that can be a nice second, like that can be my pay the bills career. And that gives me also a little bit of the time to do other stuff. And, you know, I did end up writing books, but I never had a big success or anything. Some did well, better than others. But overall, it's like, then the storytelling aspect switched to podcasting.
Right,
And,
right.
you know, like History on Fire is the one that...
All right. Sorry.
no worries. History on Fire is the one that hit it for me. So it's like, okay, it kind of worked out in some other way. But ultimately, it was always about this combination of two things. You know,
Okay.
I'll do something that's decent enough job. I don't mind it. Sometimes it's even fun. And then something that I do for fun that clearly pay less usually, and it's less easy to make it. Or even when it does, like if I had a stretch about 3 years where I was doing really well with the podcast.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not for life.
No,
You know,
yeah,
it's like it's up.
everything's-
You
yeah.
can't rely on that.
We're
as
just
your-
trying to get to that point where we
Yeah.
can do okay with the podcast.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Anything. Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
a whole thing, but it's a labor of love, right?
It is.
So,
It is.
as a guy, I've had a lot of hobbies in my life. I
Yeah.
played music, I toured, and did
Yep.
all the things. Then I spent 10 years building my career. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And found my way back into something that was creative and fun. You know,
Totally.
you have to do it because you love it. That's the first. You know.
Yeah, I think it's like that's why there's like the stuff that's more or less guaranteed to pay the bills need to be something that allow you to have a little time left for the rest of your life to enjoy, and the work itself needs to be like even the worst day at this job is still better than the
Yeah.
best day at most jobs. So it's like, do I necessarily love it every minute of the day? No, there's a bunch of stuff I would rather not do, but as
Yeah.
far as jobs go, why not?
And you
If-
get that month off in the summertime.
Yeah,
you get the
yeah,
holidays,
totally,
and you get the
totally.
you get like just one of the blessings of being a teacher is you
Yeah.
get lots of time there where you get downtime and you know
100%.
the dealing with everything can be a lot, I'm sure, but you still get a lot of benefits.
And I mean, now the way things are shifting in education is a little weird, but now
Right.
what's happening is most of my work right now is online.
Oh,
So
really?
it's a weird beast because you miss all the good stuff of teaching, which is the human interaction, the
Yeah.
excitement, the thing, all of that goes out the window.
Right.
You'd get a ton more free time.
Yeah.
and flexibility.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think had I started that way, I probably would have hated it.
Sure.
But I mean, not hated it because I still gave you decent life, but like it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been what I wanted. But I've been teaching for like, I don't know, 23 years or something.
wow.
So it's like, I'm
You've
okay
been
if I'm
there.
not in the classroom
Yeah.
all the time. I'm perfectly
And
fine.
Yeah.
So
Really,
it's-
the thing about that, though, isn't so much you as it is the students. I mean, the big part of growing up in life is you grow up and you go to high school, you get out of high school, and then you go to college to
Yeah.
learn how to do so much, how to interact with people, how to socialize correctly, how to deal with things and stuff. And that's kind of getting taken away. And we already have a hard time with kids, which
Yep.
I listened to the podcast with your daughter, and
yeah.
man, she's way smarter than us. Just incredible.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? This podcast is sponsored by Dead Man's Beard Co. If you guys are looking for incredible, all-natural beard care products, then look no further. They have everything you need. They have amazing beard oils. They have amazing beard butters. They got shampoos, conditioners, colognes, combs, picks, anything to help you manage this incredibly wild mane that grows off your face. They have for you. High quality products. The scents are amazing. My favorite right now is the Obsidian. If you want to make women involuntarily fall in love with you, or men with lesser beards bow down upon your feet, then use Dead Man's Beard Co. It's incredible products. It makes your face smell and look amazing. It did wonders for me. Not a face for the camera here, but we have a very special offer. If you guys use the code HEAVY15, you will get 15% off of your first order. Check out deadmansbeardco.com, follow them on all social medias, and tell them we sent you. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
But they don't get that socializations that you get when you go to college. I mean, that's one of the biggest things about going to college. Isn't necessarily that you're going to go there and get a career in, fine arts, but the fact that you're going to go there and learn how to talk to girls and how to behave and how to deal with stuff without.
That's what it's all about. You're
Yeah.
100% right. And the problem is, and it's not just education, it's the overall the direction of our society is going in a direction that's more and more and more isolated.
It is, yeah.
Loneliness is like an epidemic by this point.
much,
One thing that I always quote because it shocked me when I heard it is like some 15% of men report not having a single friend. Like I'm not talking about like 2 or 3 kind of crappy friends that you only see twice a year. I mean, zero friends.
Zero friends.
Just none. 15% of men and 10% of women. So that's still a lot even
shit.
for women.
Yeah.
That's tens of millions of people in US today that have zero friends. And then there's all the other percentage, which I have no idea what it is, but I imagine very high, of people who have friends. But like when I tell people in Italy my US friendship, they're like, yeah, that's not being friends. Because to them, it's like you hang out on a weekly basis. You talk every day. You do this stuff. And
I've
I'm like,
seen that,
that's not how it works
He calls me.
Yeah.
And he calls, we talk we text each other a lot too,
Yeah.
but we call each other.
Totally.
Exactly.
And I have, he's my brother, and we text and call each other, but that's really, I have one other friend that I'll call.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's no, and then since after COVID happened,
COVID fucked that.
Oh, yeah.
like
Of course.
pre-COVID, every single weekend, I went to this house or I went to this house. I had bedrooms in their houses,
Right.
Because we would go, I'd cook dinner, we'd
Yep.
hang out, we'd drink, we'd smoke pot, we'd listen to music, and we would just sit around until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd go to bed, wake up the next day, have breakfast together, go do something.
That's the life.
And
That's
it's
awesome.
gone.
Yeah.
We don't really,
As it's like, because people are still freaked out over it, or just lost the habit, or
I lost
what?
the habit. I
think
think
it's
more
the
than
habit.
anything.
Habit,
I think
yeah.
lost that habit and gained the habit of just not doing it. Of it, like it's like it was just.
Do
a
you
thing
want
that
to
we
pick it up
always
again,
did.
or
We do. I mean, I barbecued for 20 people at my house on
Okay,
Saturday.
okay.
So,
So
we go back and forth.
slowly
with it. Yeah,
rebuilding
yeah.
that muscle?
But it's always a lot. I'd had a lot of loss. I lost my wife during
Yeah.
COVID. I lost my mom. I lost like 4 friends recently, and so it's still, there's kind of the like comfort level.
Of course.
I'm reading your book, the No Fear book right now, and it's really, I haven't gotten to the heavy stuff. I'm kind of actually a little stressed
avoiding
about it. I'm not, because I know, like, I couldn't watch movies. Like, anything that had to do with any type of like that emotion, and
that sucks.
but it's all trying to build back out of that whole, honestly, that whole scam, but to get back into being more, we're getting there though.
I mean, no, it's important. It's important because we're human, that's all we do. It's like you thrive on human contact, and instead, everything is geared toward more time, convenience, something that you can do at 2 a.m. in your underwear or in a computer rather than face-to-face interaction, which, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the flexibility.
Right.
But that only works if that's making time for other, like if you don't have to go physically to work every day, and you can do a bunch of line, and that gives you more time to hang out with your friends.
Sure.
That's fantastic.
Right.
If I get to stay home and work remotely, but then I have more time to watch TV or something and be even more isolated, it's a terrible idea. So it's kind of like, it depends how you use it. It could be an opportunity, but more often than not, it's not. And it ends up being more isolation, more loneliness and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I see it with my kids. My kids don't know how to hang out with their friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've thought about this a lot, because my idea growing up was you get out of the house, you run to someone's house, you knock on the door, see if they're there. You're out all fucking day, right?
Of course.
And what I have realized over the years is that my kids now, they are constantly talking on either Instagram or Discord or whatever. They're in communication all fucking day.
Yeah,
and it's not as valuable to me.
Yep.
But when I ask them, I'm like, why don't you hang out with your friends? And they're like, we hang out all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it is the way of the world now, right? So I always, like, I have to step back sometimes when I'm like giving them shit. I'm like, get out of the fucking house, They're like, yeah, I know, I got it, but I'm like, why don't you hang out with your friends on the weekends? They're like, well, we hang out, we talk all day, we talk all night long. There's not a time at which we're not in communication, and that is as valuable to them as the actual in person.
And I have
what's fucking right?
You know, I have nothing against that.
Right.
However, there's something about being in the same room, being in physically in each other's
100%.
presence that you can't really replicate.
Right.
It's like, I appreciate some of the things that technology can give us, fantastic. But there are some things for which there is no substitute.
100%. The physical connection that you get with people that you don't get, and whether it's good or bad, like situations that you get into that then turn into a learning, or something that you learned about, or something, like somebody was just talking about, you don't see kids walking around with cast anymore.
Yeah, except for mine.
And when we
casted
and
up.
Same with Chris's kid was the same way, but when we were growing up, all of your friends, somebody had something.
Someone had something.
My fingers would be broke all the time, or my wrist, but you didn't, like, you fell out of the tree and you went home and your friends all helped you out, and then we all laughed about it later, and it was a story that you got that was actually a connection, a physical connection that you're not getting. I don't care what, I really love the memes that I get daily from my dude friends that are just horrible stuff. But it still is not as fun as us hanging out and going wheeling, or going and hanging out with each other and standing around and just, talking shit to each other and belittling each other and just laughing hysterically at the dumb stuff that we'll do. And
absolutely,
that connection, we need that. That's such a huge part of our lives.
That is funny. I get the opposite. Like, sometimes my daughter gets on my case about, why the hell are you on the phone? Like, let's have dinner and just put the fucking phone away and talk to me. And I'm like, yep, you're 100% right. It's like,
That's wild.
No, I mean, there's a process in that's addictive, for sure.
For sure.
Addictive, not always in a bad sense. Some stuff is fun too. And as you say, you get things, you meet people that you never meet through that. You get, there's fantastic things that come out of it. But I think we haven't quite figured out how to incorporate it into our lives in a healthy way.
Right.
And of course, by the time we figure out social media, which is 2007 or something, by the time we'll figure that out, in the meantime, things have evolved. Like, there are 10 new things to incorporate that we are not catching up with. And so that's part of the problem, because theoretically it could be used. I mean, some of them are structural because, like, the fact that the algorithms privilege horrible stuff, they thrive on whether rightly or wrongly, they decided that human beings engage more when they are angry.
Yep.
So they feed you anger all day long.
X, man. I go on there and I go on there quite a bit because I'm trying to look for, like we follow a thing called Real News No Bullshit, and they've been going down south and they've been doing this stuff that's boots on the ground, and they're very non-committal to different political parties. They're just about trying to get stuff out there. Yeah. And I can watch the actual interviews and the long force stuff on X. But every time I get on X and I what they call the doom strolling stuff, and I don't want to, but I end up watching just murder, just constant, nonstop, unbelievable. Watching one earlier today, and these two dudes are talking, and one of them was a biker. And I don't think it was from the States. I think they were somewhere in Europe or whatever. But the guy started to talk to him, and he just went, kind of, you could see him kind of look like kind of, and then just pulled a gun out and like point blank, just shot him in the head. Yeah. Like, and then put the gun back and walked over and started talking to his friend. Yeah. Didn't that's I'm like, where's all the other stuff that,
I was like talking with people who say, oh, you're always posting this controversial stuff. I'm like, I pretty much never do. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? And then they tell me, oh, you know what? Now I look at your feed and none of the other 233 posts of the past year came up. The only ones that come up is where you're angry about something. Yeah, and I'm like, which is literally like 1% of what I ever put out there. So I'm like, but the algorithm puts that right in front. Right. The other stuff is like flowers and puppies. The algorithm hate flowers and puppies. It's like, screw flowers and puppies. It's all about
videos are some of my dog videos, dog blooper videos are some of my favorite thing in the whole world.
That's what I like. Instagram, I try to make a point to almost only click on puppy videos. That way I'm trying to gently push the algorithm in that direction where I get fluffy puppies all day long. And I'm like, if you look at like my suggestions, they're all like judo, jiu-jitsu videos or puppies. Right, that's about it.
Yeah. The judo videos, man. I started getting into that and really wish, because there was a I don't know if it's still there anymore. I just drove by there, but there was a judo studio in Oxnard. And I really wish as a kid that I had understood more what judo was and also could afford to go to it. Yeah. But I really, because I watched that.
Judo's
my
awesome.
God.
Yeah, Judo's awesome.
It's like you can watch jiu-jitsu, and if you know kind of what's going on, you can figure it out. Yeah. But if you don't know what is going on, it just looks like two dudes rolling around together, which, that's a different channel.
Exactly.
That's a different.
But watching those judo guys, man, where they, they'll kind of wrestle around and do the hand game, and then the next thing you know, they're in the air.
Someone's
and
flying.
It's so much fun.
What was your path for martial arts?
Was
it out here? Or
I started in Italy a tiny bit. Okay. Started out with variety of Chinese martial arts.
Sure, yeah.
Eventually, out here in California, I got into this one style that's like most styles. Is the history and the reality of what they are two different things entirely. Yeah. Is this one style that was... it's more likely than not was based on Charlie Foot, but the guy who started it in US made it his own thing, and then it became this family style with a 2,000-year history, and they're like, probably not, but it's like, it was a fun style as far as more self-defense oriented stuff goes. And I think that kind of stuff today gets to be dismissed a lot of the time because we are so combat sports have shown a lot of stuff that works. But and of course, that's also then where I went with a lot of combat sports. I've done a ton of jiu-jitsu and judo and boxing and MMA and you name it, right? So all that. And I do agree that 90% of the stuff you do is highly effective. Dealing with a resisting opponent, there's no substitute for it. There's all of that is fantastic. I do, however, think that there are things that are different. It's like there's you hear all the time stories of phenomenal fighters who get into a fight in the street and get their ass kicked because they are thinking this is a match with their ref within. My favorites are those videos where you see somebody in a street fight who does a perfect double leg. passes, end up in mount, he's ready to pummel the guy, and then the guy's girlfriend walk up and shin kicks him in the head and knocks him out. And I'm just like, I think your understanding of real life fighting versus sport, sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot that translate to real life, but not entirely.
Yeah.
And I think so some of those arts that are more self-defense oriented, their problem is that sometimes they go into fantasy land because you're dealing often with, you're drilling, but you're not really dealing with a resisting opponent. So you do need combat sport, but in my mind, you also need some of that stuff because it opens your mind to what it is to fight two guys, not one. What it is to deal with, you have to change tactics. You have to change tactics if the floor is broken glass and dirty needles. I'm not going to take it to the ground. No. What can you do? So, it's like
100%,
it forces you to think differently, and I like that. Yeah. But I do like, grappling is fantastic. It's just because getting hit in the head sucks.
It does
so
suck,
there's something nice about just
really,
good grappling.
I wish that it when, because I had done karate back in the early 90s, and it was more of a combat art, the one that I took. Mm-hmm. But now that I look back, I really wish that when I was, because I just got out of jail and I was just looking for something to do, that there would have been something more like jiu-jitsu that I could have been involved with, because I think that I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Mm-hmm. I'm in karate classes, and I've got these guys that I know are a higher level than me, and they have me doing this stuff, and I'm like, unlike jiu-jitsu, I'm like, well, I could, like, if we really got busy, we'd have a hard time because you don't understand the whole
distance, close.
There's no rules in the streets.
Of course. No. But then you see jiu-jitsu guys, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes you'd always, as soon as somebody goes to take you down in a fight, you immediately go, oh no, this is bad. And I remember in high school getting in something, and like my uncle was a really good wrestler, and we'd play around, and he would immediately take you to the ground,
of course,
put you in a position. You're like, man, this is horrible.
You don't know what to do. You're that's why, in fact, there are a bunch of things that are good in their own way. It gets weird when they think that their way is the way, and that's it's really good for what it does. It gives you some tools. Mm-hmm. They're not all the tools in the world. You also need other things.
Yeah,
right.
It's wild. And I see people, and I know people that will say this, that go, oh, well, that MMA stuff is, that's cool, but my Sifu. And you're like, your Sifu will what? Your Sifu's going to get in there with who?
No, exactly.
There's no chance.
No. And that's, I think, is the problem with more traditional martial arts, even though I do think that there's a value, that it's so easy to go into fantasy land and for people to build this mythology about themselves and their skills, where I'm like, this is not an alternative to combat sport. This should be on top of combat sports, not as an alternative. Because if you do it purely as an alternative, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some guys who, either because they've had a lot of fights in real life, so they have a real sense of what actually goes down. But otherwise, if they are just dojo guys, they make up shit that's never going to work under pressure.
I mean, I started rolling with John up there, and the one thing that I really liked about him is that it was always from a self-defense, but also punch him in the face.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you get someone down and get in their guard. Cool, posture up, do the thing. He's all, but also drill him in the face. You know what I mean? Like, this is real life shit here. No one's going to play jujitsu with you when you're in a fight, And I was just telling my other coach, Josh, the other day, I was like, because I'm like a 4-stripe white belt, I was like, I feel like I just got control of all my limbs. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so still fucking lost, and like, I'm a big dude. I can lay on you. You know what I mean? But I literally just, like, the last month or two, I was like, oh yeah, I got feet I could use.
I can do this,
whatever. But it's like, I wouldn't have any time to consider that in the street. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to throw a haymaker and pray to God it works. That's pretty much what my world would be.
I love that my big friends that I got that do it, their their technique is Wade does the same thing, Chris. Wade will go, I'll just lay on him. And he's like 6'2", 6'3", and he's in good shape, and he's a big dude. And he goes, no, they'll try to get out, and as they're trying to get out, I'm wiggling around so they can't get out. And he goes, and then I'll put my hand over their mouth so they can't breathe.
Just smother them.
Totally. He goes,
they're gonna give up.
I love it. It's so funny.
Totally. It's that's one thing that is funny, because I'm like, I try to be super nice with people I train with. So I don't crank anything hard ever.
Sure.
But my style is just, what was that lady? There's this African-American singer who had this, I forget her name. She was amazing. She had this song that she would do, I Wanna Be Evil. And,
okay.
I'm forgetting the name. She was Orson Welles' favorite. She was fantastic. But that's sort of my jiu-jitsu game is if it's not wrist lock, neck cranks, heel hooks, I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
it's like
I'm here to break some shit.
My favorite thing as of late, and I'm not a big guy, so that's extra humiliating coming from me, is that I'll be in somebody's guard and I'll tap them, which you're not supposed to be in somebody's guard to be able to tap them.
Right.
Worse is I'll tap them from pressure.
Totally.
And from inside their guard. And so that's where it gets
so
a little
humbling.
humiliating.
Yeah. There's some wrestlers at our spot that are savages. You know what I mean? And I'm a big guy. I'm pretty strong. And there was a point I was wrestling with this kid the other day. I thought, if this was in a street fight, I would still lose. I mean, there's no fucking way. I can't do anything right now. You know what I mean?
I hate wrestlers because they are the best. Wrestlers are, they don't give up. They get out of anything.
I know,
they go
crazy,
super hard. I try to play, especially now because I'm 50. I'm like, I don't want to have the speed or the. So even though I'm not big, I tend to play a very wrestle-heavy game of just cradles and stockade and all these horribly uncomfortable positions that are...
Which is very a John Jensen thing, too. Exactly. We had him on like a few weeks ago, and we let him know that like every time he chooses someone to show a move to, they're all...
good luck.
Yeah, because he just as soon as he grabs you, it's fucking over, dude. And it's so funny to me, and he has no idea. He's like, "Oh, really? Was that rough?" You're like, "I almost died."
Yeah, one time I remember he was asking me to show him a judo thing, and he's like, "So how do you do this thing? So you start from a collar tie." And he's just asking me, and he just put his hand on my neck like that, and I was like,
it's not going to work on you.
You don't need to do anything else. You can just grab here, and you're done. It's like that would take care of it. He's like, no, but show me the technique. It's like that is the technique. You have done everything already. You don't need to add.
We're done here. We got it.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah, in your case, it would work already. There's no next step to make it work. It's like you already have.
The second he grabs your wrist, you're all, you know, it's fucking over. But that's. I mean, the heel hooks, all that stuff is incredible, man. I mean, so you started doing this stuff, what, in the 80s? I mean, how long have you been rolling?
So I started jiu-jitsu 2002, something like that.
Pretty early in the...
So, I mean...
Before the jiu-jitsu explosion.
Yes and no, in the sense that I had no money, so I didn't really train in a school.
Okay.
I trained in people's garages. So I did it a lot, but I wasn't getting like a good curriculum where there's like a progression, you know? So there were some parts of my game where I was way more advanced than I should have been. And other parts where I completely suck. Because it's like, nobody ever showed me that. Because you never really actually took a curriculum and went through the... So it was a lot of like, you know, it was good and bad. You know, you get, like, I got good at leg locks at the time when people didn't know shit about leg locks. So it was like, that was my game. I was like, oh, if I can take it there, even if you're better, it doesn't matter. So I got good at that early, but then there were a bunch of basic things that I should have, you know, should really be your foundational things that I was lacking. So, you know, it's like, then eventually after I started going to actual schools and that helped a bunch.
What's the video... I don't know if you just released it, but I just heard it from you. The video you've released.
Oh, yeah.
The
prison rules.
Rules.
So I did it because my style is evil. I did a whole video for BJJ Fanatics that's all about...
so romantic for you to hear that your style's evil in your accent. It's almost like, more menacing.
It's so scary.
It's all like...
He's just sitting over there all sweet.
Wrist locks, neck cranks, all this evil stuff. And this... So, it's all the nasty part of jiu-jitsu.
The real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are things. Sometimes I need to remember. It's okay to get a basic, nice rear naked choke on a guy. It's okay to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to crush someone's windpipe.
Yeah. I'll do this thing that it's a wrestling thing, but when you catch the leg and the head, so you have them in a cradle, and they are already not happy because they can't really get out, and then I put my knee on their ribs, and I start talking to them about what we're gonna have for dinner, and I start squeezing and just
My heirloom tomatoes are growing
Yeah,
pretty well.
exactly.
Fantastic pasta.
Yeah, that's wild.
Or
man.
it's another wrestling thing that's not jiu-jitsu per se, but like the stockade, which essentially are locking somebody in a crucifix with one arm, and then the other arm is free. And you're looking, now you're talking to each other, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess let's finish it. I'll pull on your neck a little, or I'll just get the wrist.
It's fucking menacing, dude.
But the guy just is there, and he's like, okay.
Can you finish this?
Kill me, daddy. Kill me. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a wild thing. So, like, martial arts, all this stuff, I mean, this warrior's mindset, right? You've written books on it, essentially. Where... Is that something you think that jiu-jitsu brought you, or did you have that kind of stuff going into this, or martial arts?
The way I grew up is I've always been a bit of a nerd, spend a lot of time reading, being emotionally a bit on the extreme of being heavily sensitive.
Okay.
So it's easy to turn almost into a stereotype of a guy who's like sweet and weak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have that side where it's like, when I need you to tell me a cool story, and but otherwise you're kind of weak. You know? And so I gravitated towards the opposite. I gravitated towards something that would balance me out a little.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I should not be able to only speak this one language. I should also, because there are a bunch of people who don't give a crap about that language. They are not. That's not gonna be something that they respect you for or care for, or you can. So it's like, okay, what do I do when I'm in an environment that instead deals with a very different kind of energy?
Right.
Can I play there? And so I gravitated toward martial arts more as something that would add a different side to my personality compared to where I was naturally.
Sure.
And so it was, in many ways, it's precisely because I wasn't that I gravitated toward it.
Okay. But you were conscious enough to know that
I think
flaw
so.
in yourself?
I think so.
Which is pretty wild.
The book that I'm reading, it's No Fear?
Not afraid.
Not Afraid. Not Afraid. Really, really explains a lot and says a lot that I can definitely relate with. And especially what you were just saying about, I'm like, growing up, I voracious reader, and also very nice and caring and very, up until a certain point, and then I had to shut it off because I just had to shut it off. But your description of fear and that getting into it, and the people that don't have the fear, and then just conquering it and being, like talking about your boy Leo.
Oh yeah,
and you're like, he doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, there's nothing
anything.
there,
Yeah.
and I don't relate to that at all.
No.
He probably does a little bit better than I do because I'm always going to it like, man, this is it.
Yeah, I don't like conflict. You know what I mean? I don't like it verbally. I don't like it physically. I don't like it. So just becoming somewhat comfortable with something that otherwise would freak you out, I think is important.
Yeah, and that's what reading, and I'm into it. I can look forward to getting into the rest of it, but that's one of what I'm getting from it. That is just that, like, I'm a big part of me getting in this is because I was just trying to figure out a way to conquer that fear. And then when you're talking about the first fight where you were in it, and then all of a sudden you're tapped out when you shouldn't have tapped out yet.
I literally, once I managed to tap out for absolutely no reason. It's like I was freaked out. I didn't manage to settle my mind. I went for something. It was a pretty good move. I caught him in a leg lock, was working it. He got out. And all of a sudden, my whole thing was like, oh shit, now what?
Wow.
And he literally just passed to side mount, didn't even hit me. And I was like, I'm done. I broke that much, where I completely broke mentally, where I was like, nope, I'm not doing
it. The reptilian brain took over or something.
Every waking moment after that, forever how long it took for you to get past that, all you can think about is, like, how did I let myself do that?
And
it just sits there in your head,
of course,
and eats you, and your stomach's going nuts, and you're in knots, and you're like, no, I got to get past that, you know, it's just such a relatable moment to just understand, like, man, like, why did I do that? You know, and then to read where you're just like, well, I know the next time that I need to work past this. And then to get in the next one where I don't know if it was necessarily the next one, but when you got in the one where it was just absolute exhaustion.
I mean, I remember, one match where I did 2 rounds and I won the first, he won the second. We're going into the third and I have no energy left. And I'm like, and I really just want to, like, can I just quit? And then I had a flashback of the previous time and I'm like, no, you're going to, if you need to die in the next round, but don't do that because that
way
feels
better than going home
exactly.
and telling my old lady that I
this is
cacked
just
again.
too awful. So it's like, and I did, and I actually managed to win. But I remember at the end, after, hey, congratulations, I lay down on the mat and I did not move for like 35 minutes. I was just like this, like crucifix-like, just laid there. People are like, hey, good job. Like,
we'll talk later.
I had nothing left.
Yeah, pushing past that point of quitting is so important in life, you know. As a father, I struggle with it constantly, you know, trying to get my kids to do that. You know?
Oh, I thought you were just gonna quit.
Oh, I think about quitting on my family. Weekly, dude. I'm like, fuck these fucking people. My dad quit. Fucking
it's time.
Great.
It's time.
Yeah, look at him. He's having a good time.
Talk to him.
He's been retired forever.
But like I get so fascinated in that mindset. Like, how does one already have it? Is it something that can be built? You know what I mean?
I think you build it because, I mean, for me, definitely it's not natural in a way. Right. So to me, it's like, and I mean, it's exactly what he was talking about. Like, you see what it's like when you do quit. It feels so damn awful that is like, do you really ever want to feel that way again? And it's like, not really. Okay, so there are things you can do. Here is what you can do to not do that.
I mean, to have that feeling and it just sits there.
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, you get in a confrontation and you're still young and you're not quite set up and, you know, you get beat up or you don't even get beat up. You just get punked.
Sure.
And then you know, you wake up in the morning and you just are like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're standing around with your friends and you're like, man, like...
No, it sucks.
You know,
it sucks.
You know, but it builds. You know, you can get away from that. You can work at it, but it's just you have to keep doing it and work at it and get past that mental. And that for me, the fear part doesn't go away. It's just you just know that you know.
Yeah, you deal with it better, but that's it.
Yeah, but it's still there.
Yeah, no, in fact, people are wired differently. Some people, but you know, it's funny because the same guy who may be completely unafraid to get into a giant fight and they do it on a whim, they may be terrified of public speaking.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So fear is relative. It's not like you are unafraid in one and all situations. It's like, no, you have mastered a specific fear. There are 10 million others that you may or may not be able to translate that to these other places.
Right. I have absolutely no problem at all getting on stage in front of everybody.
Right, exactly.
And have nothing, like, just get up there and start. Because he'll be like, hey, do you have this figured out? I'm like, yeah, I got it. And it's because I've kind of been working out in my head, but then the rest of it just is going to come out as it comes out.
Of course.
You know, and then I watch, you know, like our buddy Chris Perez, he writes everything out and he sets it up and he does the dialogue and it's hilarious. Yeah. You know, but I don't have a problem walking up on stage.
I mean, I've literally, it makes sense to me. I'm like more like you. I remember seeing like my lady fought for one championship, so she went to Asia, she fought in Singapore, in Malaysia, all of that, right? So she could do that and be fine. And I literally, when they interview her on like Zoom, she finished chat with somebody for half hour. She'll come, I'll give her a hug, and she's all sweaty. And I'm like, why are you sweaty? It's like, I had to talk to these people. I had to answer these questions. It's like, and she's like way more anxious and scared of talking to somebody on Zoom that she doesn't know than she is to go into a cage and fight somebody.
It's a wild one.
And it's like, how does that? To me, it makes zero sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, we're wired differently.
But
you
also,
know?
you speak in public
Exactly.
constantly.
It's
right?
like,
Yeah. So,
but you know, also there are predisposition, right? There are certain
Right.
things for which it's like, it takes you nothing to get over that fear, and other things that is like, you're never gonna
Not
get
gonna
over
happen.
this. You
I
can
saw a
manage
spider.
it, but
I saw a spider. That's it. I'm done. You know.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
guy's a
Right.
cage fighter. There's a spider on him. He screams like a girl. you know?
it happens.
Right.
It happens.
Well, that or snakes. Another good one.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But kind of switching gears a little bit, going into the history stuff, I'm very interested in what it is that you're fascinated by with the historical events. Like, what is it? A specific time era? I mean, I know you got your degree in like Native American stuff, right?
I think for me is like the reason why I like history is because it's a calderon of stories, right?
yeah.
There's like, and you know, there are all kind of stories, and if you can find there's a never-ending supplies of epic stories with great characters, with great tales, with can you believe that happened, or can you believe that guy in that situation was able to do this and that, or you know. So to me, I just enjoy storytelling.
Sure.
And history gives you a bunch of raw material for some great storytelling, and that's what I enjoy.
fantastic at it.
Yeah.
You really are. It's
very good,
You are so good at it, man.
Yeah.
And that's the fun to me, and that's what's amazing about how boring they make history in school, because you're like, this should be fun. You know, this should be something that people are, because it's like watching your favorite show and it's exciting and it's all of that. And instead they often make it into this very dry, impersonal stuff that nobody cares about, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading, my daughter was, she's taking a history class right now in high school, and I was reading her textbook, and I was like, Jesus Christ, getting through this stuff is heavy.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And it's not real.
No,
and
and
it's fake.
And then sometimes I would tell her the same thing, and she's like, "Oh, I like it now. This is great."
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't really take
do you
that
believe
much.
history is written by the winners?
Yeah, I mean, there's
much.
a ton of
Right.
like,
You have to dig deep to find the
Go
other
to
side,
school.
right?
yeah,
Yeah, because I've heard that my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is true. Obviously, what we learned here in America about how this country was taken is like, you know, it seems fine. You know,
I mean, think of a perfect example of that. Think like the Roman Republic / Roman Empire, right? Hundreds of years of history, zillions of people. There were, you know, the Roman Empire ran on slavery. So, you know, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of people who were enslaved. There's no one line written by a slave about their own experience.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's history is written by the winners. You know, it's like what we have, whatever we know about slavery in the Roman Empire does not come from the people who were enslaved. You know,
If we, as we go through school and we deal with that, the American natives, you don't really hear their story, you know. And
Of course.
I had a history teacher, I think it was freshman or sophomore year in high school, named Mr. McNeary, and I would sit in class because I loved history. I started with Louis L'Amour, and then I started really trying to find stuff more about it. And we would sit there in class, and he would start to talk about stuff and lecture, and I would go, "Hey, what about this?"
Yeah.
And he'd go, "Well, yeah." And then you could see him like kind of not like, but like, "Oh, okay." You know, and then it got to the point where he would do the class, and at the end of the class, I'd go sit with him, and then ended up doing like side jobs with him and stuff. But it was just getting into the weeds of what was really going on, and not the fictitious little, surface stories. And that's what I love about listening to History on Fire. And I've recommended your podcast to so many people, man.
Thank you.
Like probably right after you did Joe Rogan's podcast, or maybe through Joe. Well, it's all because of Joe, but because of the Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, and then you coming on there, and then both of those podcasts are just So it's so like, how do you is it just, how do you find all the material to do? Like, I know you have to read a ton.
Yeah.
But is it like, are you searching out books? Are you going online? Or is it just like, because they're like,
some are stories I know, some are stories I don't. Sometimes when people tell me a story and I'm like, Google it, and I'm like, oh, damn, that is a good story. And then, the key element is, are there enough sources or not? Because otherwise, there are stories that are fantastic, but I can tell them in 5 minutes and there's nothing left. And I'm like, that's not an episode, I need to have more. So I need to look that there are enough sources. There has to be a great story. Ideally, there are great characters. Not always, but ideally. Like, I did one story at one point that basically had no characters. There was, kind of vaguely, but it was this clash between the Assyrians and Jewish people like 2,700 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And what happens is that what was the selling point of that story is how unbelievable it is, because the thing is, the Assyrians were beating everybody. They do beat this rebellious Jewish state, they destroy every one of their city except Jerusalem. They are about to destroy Jerusalem too, and if they do, more likely than not, based on where Jewish history is at that time, Judaism would disappear off the face of the earth, which of course it means there would be no Christianity and no Islam. So on that one siege, the entire history of the world changes.
Damn.
You know? And so I didn't have, like, the characters where there wasn't that much depth to them, but the premise
overall
itself was so insane that I was like, I can make an episode with that. Most of the time I like it where you have great characters because it's so much easier to see history and life through somebody's eyes. It's like watching a movie, you can relate personally more, and that's more fun.
And you're some, like, I want to say it's Machiavelli, and there was another one that you did. The characters in those stories are just absolutely lunatics, man. They are just on a whole you just realize, like, as we go through society right now and people are like, oh, that guy's crazy. Nah, not like this guy was.
The idea of a crazy person is
and
way
they
different.
but it wasn't even, he just had lived in such a squalor upbringing that he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to be the craziest hardcore gangster. And you can put me in prison. That's the worst, but I've already been there. I'll get out. And when I get out, I've just recruited 6 more people and we're now going to run this city, and you tell those stories so beautifully, man. It's such a great, what I love about our day and time is, before, for me to find this stuff, I'd have to go get a book and hope that book was good,
exactly.
Robert, the guy that wrote like Trinity, I think it's Robert Urris, but Trinity is a book about Ireland, and it's kind of like goes through the history of Ireland, and tells a story with fantastic characters, and and actually gives a good historical of what it was like and what it went through. But trying to find that's not easy to find. And now with history podcasts, man, I just listened to one. I don't know. It's one of the ones that's like a half hour long, but they were talking about a Mormon that was like the bodyguard for. I had no idea. This dude was an absolute lunatic. His hair was his special.
Yeah, he was like Samson, basically.
Basically. But you hear his story. He was an absolute lunatic. And without him, who knows what would have happened?
Of course,
because they were, man. It's the best.
Fascinating. There's so many tales of fascination. You know what I mean? Like people, like that. I read an article about that guy, Mad Jack.
Oh yeah.
Is that? Have you ever heard about that guy?
Yeah. He's a good one. He's a good one.
That's crazy. Have you heard about that guy? He was stormed the beach in Normandy with a sword. Captured like I don't know how many prisoners, had the last confirmed kill with a bow and arrow during war, and you're like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, that guy was something else. Right? There are in some cases where the story is fantastic like that, but I don't have enough for a full episode. One of the things, for the longest time, I was struggling with this because I'm like, I wish I could tackle it, but I'm doing long form episodes. I'm not. Now, because of doing through Patreon and Substack, what I do is I do bonus episodes for like the people who support, and I do those short stories. Because I'm like, I'll give you a 20-minute story if it's a fantastic story, and that's it. It's
amazing.
And those are like that guy who, for example, is a perfect one for that one. It's like you're gonna tell the story fairly quickly, but it's a great story.
It's incredible, but it is true.
Like, exactly.
Right? Oh my god, yeah.
So
it's fascinating when you read about him. You're like, he got captured by a bunch of soldiers. Then somehow switched it and recaptured him, right?
Yeah.
Last confirmed kill with a bow and arrow. Like,
Yeah,
you're like,
I'm in. I'm definitely want to know.
wild.
There's one World War II guy that I did talk about. And again, his story, there was only so much. So then I did it a little bit about his culture and where he was coming from and all of it. But like this guy from the Crow tribe who went to fight in World War II and became the last guy to fulfill like these 4 things you're supposed to do to become a war chief for the tribe.
Really?
And the reason why it's impossible pretty much is, some are fairly straightforward. You lead a war party. Okay, that's fine. You can do that in war. You can, but like one of them involves stealing horses from the enemy, which of course in modern warfare. So at one point during World War II, after he has done the other 3, they are chasing this group of Nazis, and these Nazis took over this farm in France, and they are there, and there's a bunch of horses that they have, and they are about to attack, and it's like, guys, can you guys give me 10 minutes here?
Hold on.
It's like, so he goes in, sneak, steal all the horses, run off, and then they attack.
Yeah.
God, that's awesome.
Imagine like going to war and then being like, actually, this is good. I got a bucket list. Click off here. You know what I mean? It's just insane. When it comes to our political shit, our election is literally 2 weeks away.
Yep.
Is it often that you're reading through historical shit and you see correlations and history repeats itself?
Sure.
How much do you see our future in our past?
I mean, it's yes and no, because of course some patterns always repeat identical, and of course the conditions have also changed, and the technology we have today is totally different, and so it's always it informs reading the present and predicting the future, but of course there are also variables that were never so before you can say, okay, when they were playing with 3 cards, this is the outcome. Now we're playing with 7, the dynamics look the same, but there are more cards in the deck which are gonna change the game. So it's like so it's a little bit of both.
It's still funny though how like you go back to like the gangs of New York, and you go back to those times when the Irish and everybody were coming over, the Italians and the Irish were coming over, and we were just dirt people, and we're just mud and garbage, and we have to keep this from happening, and that they've ran that same gambit
with everybody
to this day. They're still doing it,
of course.
And there is the aspect of like, okay, now there is some stuff that's going on, but it's just because there's more. There was good Italians and good Irish that came over, but there was also criminals came over and started, the mad rabbits and all the crazy stuff. And now we've got all these different people that are, that are coming through that are like really good, hardworking people that are just trying to get somewhere and get out of the craziness, but there's also the criminality and the media and the government's gonna, whatever that moment's gonna be, that's what they're gonna manipulate.
One thing that I'm huge on in politics, in communication, in just personal life and everything is trying to see, like one thing I was telling my daughter as a almost communication exercise was like, use the improv idea, the yes and. Meaning really somebody tells you something that maybe you think is flat out awful, right? So I was playing with her. I was giving her example. I was playing the bad guy in every situation. So I was like, the homeless, they're all criminal. We should put them all through the wood chipper. And of course she goes like, what? And I'm like, yeah, of course, this is an asshole, right? It's like this person saying that is not a nice human being. How do you deal with that in a way that's not just screw you and I don't want to deal with you? And like, what is this guy afraid of? What is that he values that you could actually agree with? So he probably doesn't want to deal with crime and doesn't want to be taking his kids to school and there's the homeless guy shitting on the street at the same time. That's legitimate. That's a legitimate need. So you can acknowledge that and then go, maybe we don't need to go to the wood chipper. Maybe there's a way to address what you are concerned about in a healthier way that's slightly more compassionate and all of that. And then I was playing the opposite role of the ones who say, oh, poor homeless victims, laws should not be enforced in those cases. And by the way, we should put the homeless camp next to your house where there's an empty lot. And and he's like, okay, so this person has something legitimate, try to treat some human beings who have gone through a lot in a decent way, and they're also taking it a bit far. How can you? And so to me, it's interesting to take the part where it's real, where it's like, okay, well, you do have a point there, but now you build on this partial truth, such mountain of bullshit that it leads to a really unhealthy place. Let's go back to the little bit of partial truth and combine it with other things in a way that can be a little healthier. You know?
Yeah, and if you can do that, and one thing for me, like, I toured all over the U.S. for 10 years, right? Yep. I've been to every single state in this country, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me for perspective.
Of course.
I mean, just because it's so easy to buy your own bullshit all the time, right?
Yep.
And me, I've always grown up listening to storytellers and people that I disagreed with adamantly.
Yep.
And I, with my kids now, like, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I sort of got it was probably Rogan and Kid Rock, who I just don't like.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I just don't appreciate. I think he's a fucking idiot.
Of course.
Know? And my kids are little lefty fucking wokies, and they're like, "Why are you listening to this guy?" And I was like, "Because if you don't understand how morons think, you're going to be shocked by their actions.
Of course.
Your job is to hear the other side, and not that he's a moron. He's probably not. He's a nice guy, but I just disagree with 99% of whatever he says." You know, and I'm like, and I listen to that shit constantly. I listen to everyone I don't agree with, and I listen to people I agree with, and I challenge my kids on fucking everything. Yeah. Right? And not because I want to be right, but because I want them to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think to me is like, why do we want it? I think it's because part of it is there's no good solution is ever going to come down from me yelling at somebody louder and just
100%.
Squashing them. Because even if you do, it's a partial solution because they are going to come, they hate you, and they are going to come trying to come back to undo whatever you have done.
100%.
So to me, it's like any good solution comes from idea of mutual benefit. You know, I need to give you something that you walk away feeling, if not happy, at least okay with the outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm going to want to get something good out of it. Anything that doesn't try to include everybody involved, it's not because we want to be nice or sweet. That's nice if that's who you are, but it's not about that. It's about that's the only thing that works. Any other solution is not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, not long term at least. It may work short term, definitely not long term.
Yeah, I think with the podcast shit, the conversation has become important again, you know, and I see the sea changing because even my kids who I argued with constantly over gender politics and this and that, because I don't give a shit who you are, just it's ridiculous, some of it. My kids now only watch debate on TikTok. That's all they watch. Yeah. They only watch shit that is like this version versus this version, and they'll watch hours of it now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which it gives me a little bit of hope.
Of course.
But you know, I think just with podcasts and people willing, I think everyone's at the point just they've all realized we're in the same fucking boat. A lot of us are realizing that. You know,
the way things have been going in this last couple of years, like everything that I have always stood for, I've gone like it's not the same. Like things have changed so dramatically.
Yeah, there is that too. Yeah.
We now have like you can point at the people all involved and go, wait a minute, just because this guy jumps on board doesn't mean that makes you right.
Sure. Right.
That should make you go, well, wait a minute, if this dude's here, why are we now like, and it's just the going back to the control.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it's fascinating.
And I mean, when it comes to politics, part of the problem is that you're never looking at something that's good. You're looking at something that's god awful and something that's a lot worse. And so it's like those are usually your alternatives.
Pretty much,
And so typically what you end up happening is that people will support somebody because they hate the other one, right?
Yeah.
And there are plenty of cases where you're like, yeah, you're right. So-and-so is absolutely terrible. But what you are pitching me may or may not, in some cases, what you're pitching is actually even worse. So it's like, while we agree on the criticism of these, just because A is against B doesn't mean that maybe they are even worse. And so it becomes, and then it becomes this conversation, which are always a little tricky because it's like, okay, which shade of horror is worse? Like, which one is your favorite? Which serial killer do you want? And it's like, I kind of don't want a serial killer in here, but okay, the guy.
That is such a great analogy. Yeah, it's like, hey, which of these two serial killers is the best one?
Yeah,
I mean, when it comes down to it, and if the history is there.
Yeah,
you can look at the history of everybody involved, and you can see how horrible they have been.
Sure.
You know, I have read about Trump from years before he even got in the political system. I've never liked the guy. I've never respected the guy. He's just not a good person to deal with as a businessman. Even he's not been good. You know, but then you look at Kamala's history and the stuff that she's done, and you're just like, it's the perfect analogy. Which is the best serial killer? You know, which is the best one?
Which one?
You know,
and in fact,
crazy.
anybody who makes an argument that they are true believers for anybody there, I'm like, my poor lost friend, you know.
Buddy, Have fun.
But then I do get the argument that say, well, you know, one way or another is going to play out. Don't you want the one who's driving the train toward destruction at 100 miles an hour? Isn't that better than the guy who's driving it at 180 miles an hour?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand. I can see that logic. I mean, to me, it's like,
it makes sense, but it's like, how do you even?
No,
do
it
any of
sucks.
you guys know how to hit the brake?
I think, like, for me in politics, I remember the 2000 election and how horrendously disappointing was to see the Democratic Party, which already under Clinton was tilting toward pretty awful policy. Go run a god-awful campaign that doubled down on that and more. And so there was a point where my attitude was like, at this point, might as well give me a Republican because you guys are the same shit. And so I was like, go with Nader, screw all of these guys and everything. But then we got George W. Bush. And then I was like, oh, there are differences there. So the guy that I absolutely despise among Democrats would still have been considerably better than what we got with
He's like,
George
let me hold your NAFTA trade agreement and raise you a 9/11.
So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
I
right.
understand now the lesser of two evil argument. And I think with parties in US, I mean, I despise the DNC with a passion, but I find that in some miraculous ways, Republicans always manage to take it 12 steps further toward awfulness. So I'm just like, this is where we are. There's the guys I despise and the guys who are a lot worse.
Roman Empire, right? We're right there.
But nowadays, like, it's just like having McCain step up and be like, no, you guys should be voting here. And the daughter going like, no, this is the way to go. And then you got Tulsi and Robert going, hey, we're done with these guys. They didn't even try to give us a chance, and we're trying to work for the right fight. So we're gonna go over here, and then you're like, I don't know what to do.
No, the DNC just makes every wrong move in the game, and they are awful. And Republicans are worse. It's just, I mean, even among Republicans, you get like your Mitt Romney that makes you throw up to just listen to him for 3 seconds. So then you see Trump, and you're like, Mitt Romney, my dear brother, come here and let me hug you, because it's like, so it's it's a terrible
keep on your
game.
toes, that's for sure. Do you have hope for this country? Do you see it as a Roman Empire eventually? Are all good things going to come to an end?
Are you and the kid heading back to Italy pretty soon?
How soon are you buying that ticket?
It's nice to have double citizenship, It's always nice to have options, but. No, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell because, politically, it's shit. It will always be shit.
Totally.
It's hard to see it play out in any other way. So you're just trying to avoid the worst outcome, but I don't think there's a good outcome. I think the place where the game is really played is at the level of culture. And how things are, and right now they're not going in a good way in terms of, again, things we were talking like the loneliness, the alienation, the level of depression, the rate of suicide, all those statistics are all going in a horrible way because of a bunch of, and the problem is how do you fix that? Because it's not one thing.
No.
It's like 30 different things. It's part of it is economic system we live in. Part of it is, you get 2 weeks of vacation a year if you're lucky. That's bullshit. That's
terrible.
the food you're eating is absolutely terrible. And that's why, in fact, I hear like when Robert Kennedy is making a big deal about the food, that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, that's
then of course you go with Trump and it's like, you're never gonna be able to do it because he's patting you on the back and you're never gonna. So, but there are some legitimate issues that are absolutely key. The food we eat is crap. The stuff that we allow in all that, in pharmaceutical, in food, in everything is. How do you create a life where people are talking to each other again, there's social life, there's human interaction? How do you... it's like you have to redesign a whole society.
How do you do it without tearing it
It's-
apart?
But
hard.
part of it is just bringing back community. Just in itself, bringing back community.
100%.
And
That's huge.
that's kind of what we were talking about a little while ago with the friends not coming over, and we're not hanging out as much, and we're not doing this. But I own a bar, and I go hang out, and I'm around these people all the time as well. But like my kids, my daughter just recently got married, and her husband had just recently gone through some pretty gnarly stuff with their friends circle.
Yeah.
And me and him have always joked back and forth about like our lack of belief in God and the whole how we feel about this stuff. And we've always just joked about it. And he is like, well, I'm going to go do this, and this, and then we're going to go to church.
He's talking about
And I'm all, huh? What?
Yeah.
Huh? And he goes, no, we've been going back to church, and we've been doing church and stuff. And I went, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I go, look, how I feel has nothing to do with this. What I think is great about what you're talking about is you're going to go meet other people that are going to be like-minded in a healthy community that have all stuck together through all of this.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be around people that are going to help you build up a better community within your family as well. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Totally.
It's just a matter of finding more ways. Like I've started to involve myself with the Moose Lodge here in Ventura.
Yeah. And
I just took a different step up, and they did this speech with me, and they're like, okay, so this is what it's about. Really, this is you're going to do this, and you're taking this step because you're taking the next step to be a help in the community and to help the people that are part of the Moose, to help Moose Heart and Moose Haven, which are senior citizens places, and when I went into it, I kind of went into it like, I'm just doing it. Yeah, and a friend of mine kind of was like, hey, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But then after listening to it, I'm like, so what this is you're just trying to build up a community of people around you and help support that community and help friends and people and make that a thing. And I walked away from it going, wow, okay, I'm in.
It's a great
I felt
thing.
way better about
of course.
it. Like, it wasn't just like, I'll do it. It was like, oh, okay, it's a community. We help each other.
And one of the things that happens in those cases is that whereas online you're going to be like, what, you're voting for Trump, or screw you support evil Democrats, and it becomes that. If you know people, and not just people and you never see each other, you spend time, somebody who has what you think is a dumbass political opinion is not necessarily a deal breaker, because this person was being good to you on A, B, C, D.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, now, and also it's healthy, because then it's like it doesn't automatically mean that somebody who believes something that you think is really idiotic is evil.
Yeah.
It's like, and vice versa for them. They also understand that somebody maybe believes something completely different, still be a good human being.
Right.
So
Yes.
it brings the heat down a little bit, where it's like, okay, maybe we're just disagreeing about complex stuff to which there are no real clear, easy answer, but we can still be decent with each other, and also we can be more open to listen. I disagree with 95% of what you said, but you do have a 5% that I agree that I think is legitimate, and I need to bring it into what I'm thinking, and I need to, and we can meet somewhere in there.
What kind of music do you like? And then to change the subject and get into something where you can probably be able to find a commonality.
Yeah,
where you can go like, I like your car.
I mean,
there's,
I
like,
you mentioned music. There's, I forget the guy's name. It's a fantastic story. African-American guy, blues musician, who befriended over time a bunch of KKK guys. Through knowing him, they gave up on the KKK.
I can't remember his name right now, but he's like converted to over 200.
It's a fantastic story. And it starts with a guy telling him, man, your piano playing is amazing. And they start chatting, and the guy's like, I never sat down to talk with a black guy. And the guy's like, how can that be? And then he's like, well, as a matter of fact, I'm a member of the KKK. And the discussion then goes to a place where they see each other humanity.
As humans,
And the guy, after a while, cannot hold to that ideology after realizing, that's based on a bunch of bullshit, because this is a good human being who doesn't. Daryl Davis, that's right. That's who he was.
Fucking look at the producer.
Yes.
Him. Wow. Look at this guy, dude. You're hired.
First thing he's done in years.
Yeah, I find that because I grew up way deep in the desert around a lot of racism.
Yeah.
And it is such a thin veil of belief, dude. It really, you know what I mean? It's like,
and I grew up.
It takes about 15 real minutes of talking to someone, and you can break that shit down pretty quick. You know what I mean? Not that I'm not devaluing anything you know, but I'm also a white guy talking to another white guy.
Yeah, I grew up in just the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
I've always had, in my brother and I in our lives, we have black people around us when there was no black people in the neighborhood at all in Washington State. So I've, over the years, have learned, like, really to understand what Daryl Davis is saying is, like, this isn't based off of any type of reality. It's based off of ignorance. It's based 100%. Off of not understanding and appreciating, like, the different culture. Because you're just, most of the time, you're just a poor, struggling white person that's, like, getting shown through media that they're getting all this help and all these benefits, and why are we getting it? And now what? So now I hate these people. But, you know, it goes back to when we all came over here, and that's how they used to keep us divided,
of course,
so we wouldn't band together.
Of course,
you know.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a wild fucking country, this place, dude.
Yeah. Right.
I just part of me thinks, like, how could it possibly go on? You know.
Well, and that's where, like, the other day I was having the most American conversation ever, I was. People in Italy were looking at me like, you're insane, because they were like, aren't you going to teach to school today? And I was like, no, today campus is closed because we had a school shooting, and is the second one in the last 10 years, and it was just like that, right? And it's like, this is actually funny. There's a place called, it's a little town of less than 2,000 people in Texas called Italy. Italy, Texas, with less than 2,000 people, had more school shooting in history than the entire country of Italy, 60 million people in its whole history. That says something that's not super flattering there about. And again, it's not one thing. It's guns, of course, but it's not just guns, because there are other countries that have access to guns and don't have this stuff.
Mental health.
There's mental health. There are other countries that have mental health issues that don't. So it's a combination of things. That, you know,
lack
there's
of community.
Yeah,
also
for sure.
has a big part of the whole thing.
There's
lack
that
of empathy and lack of community.
100%. You know, so it's a bunch of things. But when you look at it, you're like, not the healthiest thing ever.
Yeah, but
know?
just the fact that you can nonchalantly tell an Italian, school shooting, and you're like, so what are we eating for breakfast? They're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
You used to know Columbine. You used to know, like, oh, this happened and it's horrible. Now
it's happened all the time.
You don't even. It's not even in the zeitgeist. It's just not even. So you're like, okay,
If it hits certain numbers, then maybe you pay attention. Otherwise, it's insane. And that's clearly, again, it's another one of those red flags of something within the culture is going to happen. You know.
Well, I think that, like, with Italy and with all these different places, like, when you look at the map of Europe and you look at everything, it's all like this.
Yep. Yeah, Italy's like the size of California.
And so then there's that culture that's built and the heritage that's built that you can't get away from. And here we have more dialects within just the United States.
But check this out. This is actually funny. So Italy, because it was never really, I mean, I guess it was in Roman times, but, you know, after that, up until Italy as a nation really only emerged in the 1860s, because before it's all fragmented and there's these guys. Okay. And it's hilarious because they don't take it. I mean, they take it seriously, but up to a point. But like the local rivalries are so funny.
Yeah.
Like there's these two towns in Tuscany, Pisa and Livorno, who flat out hate each other with a passion, right? There's a saying in Livorno that is like, it's better to have a dead relative in the house than to have a guy from Pisa knocking at the door.
Holy shit.
It's
really?
like it's...
and they're serious
about
it,
they hate each other. And, you know, I know they are in Tuscany, I know, but I forgot, like, I was at the train station in one place, and I forget the exact distance, but they're like 10 miles away or something. And you're like, you guys are not even, you're the same shit, you know, you can throw a rock from one to another. It's not even, and so you do get the things, but again, in Italy, they mostly remain as they yell at each other at the soccer stadium and they make jokes about each other. That's about where it ends.
It doesn't get to fucking violence, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, where in Lancaster, you know what I mean? Have you ever been out there? The whole entire city is divided by Division Street.
Yeah.
All the black people live on the east side, and all the white people live, and they fucking don't like each other.
Yeah,
you know, and you're like, oof, you know. It's just I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it.
No,
but,
it
is what it is.
Oxnard's a pretty small city.
Oxnard's tiny, and it has some serious shit.
You know, like you go into Hueneme into the south side, and that's a whole community, and then you have 6 or 7 other crazy gangs in between Hueneme and El Rio.
Wow.
Right. And, you know, and that's the bigger ones, not even the other little neighborhoods. You know, it is wild.
It's wild, man.
That is.
You know, I had a Mexican friend of mine that said, hey, look, man, one thing about Mexicans, they're just like pit bulls. He goes, you put a bunch of them together, somebody's going to fight. And it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter what, and it's not, it's just you put a room full of them together and they don't know each other, somebody's fighting.
My friend told me the Mexican story ever. He's very dark-skinned Mexican guy.
Oh, yeah.
He goes into a bar owned by another Mexican, and but the guy is originally from Mexico. And so my friend had like kind of like a big sombrero style hat, and the guy's like, you're born in US, you can't wear that fucking hat. And the guy's like, oh really, what do you think so? And then he's like, why don't you come and take it away from me then?
Yeah.
And the bar guy goes like, you can't wear that hat. You're Mexican. You're okay. He's like,
you got it.
You got it. You're Mexican. You're good.
Some of the best fighters in the world.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of people that have more heart than Mexicans.
No, Mexican boxers are unreal. It's just,
it's crazy.
And now in the UFC, you know, there's a bunch of the Diaz's and you know, a bunch of
they
them.
took over all the sphere. You know what I mean?
Them and the Irish.
That's actually connecting to what we were saying about speaking different languages and not literally, but like having different energies. Like this guy is like, he grew up in South Central LA, you know, very rough upbringing and everything. And, you know, he was taking a class with me when I first started teaching. And, you know, he liked the stuff we're discussing, but there's clearly a part in his brain that goes like, if I read a book, it's probably going to make me gay. And this stuff is just bothering me. You know, it's like there's something, it's bothering me, the fact that I like what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
Because, and then the one time we train together, and so we're sparring, and he lands pretty solid punch, and, you know, I deal with it. He rock me, but, like, I take him down and choke him out. Then he's like, now he's in love, right? Now he was like, now I can listen to you. You know, it's like,
he just had to beat his ass.
Yes. Now, okay, tell me about all the bullshit intellectual stuff. Yeah. That's great, because now you spoke my language. Now we are good.
Sense,
you know,
that's hard to get past sometimes. When like people will talk to me, and because of how I grew up, I'll just kind of not really fully engage about stuff because I'm like, you're kind of privileged, and I don't really want to hear it. You know, you don't understand. No. But then you have to catch myself because I'm missing out on a conversation of somebody that may have been privileged but had other stories and difficulties that, you know, I just think, well, you know what it's like to, hey, Chris, let's go get a Edamund's cake. Yeah, sure. So you go down to Edamund's and you go around the back and you open up the dumpster and they threw all the doilies away, and Chris and I were in heaven.
Of course.
Like, this is what we get all of this, dude. And it's free. You know, our parents weren't buying us birthday cakes.
No, of course.
You know,
right. Yeah.
So when you talk to other people, but then you start hearing and.
Yeah, because you're right. Because sometimes, you know, somebody grew up in a super economically privileged environment, but then it's like you hear underneath the surface, they still, you know, horrible stuff happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And it may not be the same horrible stuff, but still happens.
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing he just shit on me on the last podcast for my lack of empathy when people are telling me shit, because I'm like, I don't fucking, like, he's like, I can see you check out. Like when I'm, and I'm guilty of it. But that when I find out someone's rich, every question I had about him just got answered.
Really?
Every time I'm like,
we're done.
That's fucking it. That's exactly what it was. You grew up fucking rich. Yeah. Dude. And I immediately they have to work so much harder to get my fucking approval, and it's 100% my bias, like most of the time.
And everybody already has to work so hard to get his approval.
Yeah. No, but it is a different gig because, of course, you're gonna experience the world in a very different kind of way, for sure.
Yeah.
But then again, there may be other things that
it's a really dumb way to
you
live,
had it. You had it rough in other ways. You know.
So your fucking mom bought you a Beamer, your first fucking car, got it. Tough life, bro. Yeah. But that's my total bias.
But then it's like, your parents spend their life working. They never paid attention to you. They threw, here is a bunch of toys, and so you're like, you're dealing with different kind of shit. But
it's like if you grew up rich or you're an only child, there's one of the two things that I'm that's the missing thing that I needed to know about you, dude.
Working at group homes.
Yeah.
We would have kids that were like from the ghetto in Oxnard or from the ghetto and stuff, but we would also have this thing where it was like a middle class, upper middle class, and the parent, whichever the doctor would then say he has ADD, ADHD, whatever it was, and we need to put him in this group home for a little while so he can get some structure.
Right.
Well, while he's in the group home, we might as well go on vacation.
Yeah.
So then you're trying like, hey, man, we got this. Oh, yeah, I can't. I'm skiing up in Colorado or whatever it is. And that kid has rich parents.
Right.
But he doesn't really have parents.
Totally.
Of course.
And that's where you start to get a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, you get I mean, I'll find empathy one day, but it's not gonna be for rich kids.
Reading about it ain't gonna help.
No, not at all. Yeah. Well, dude, I think anything else you want to throw out there? Where can people find your stuff? Right, you got the 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
History on Fire.
History on Fire. One thing I've been doing for fun lately, I started a Substack that's overwhelmingly free. Like I think the only thing that's behind the paywall is when I do like bonus episodes or something. But all the stuff I write is all free and stuff. That one I'm having fun with. So far has been a non-point. Substack is kind of a platform, primarily was geared toward writers who put out, whatever they want. So essays, short stories. Some people even do full novels in pieces. But it was primarily designed kind of for creators of that kind of content. And then there's a bunch of people who just follow somebody or another because they like their work. And the way it works, unlike most social media, is that you get an email directly in your inbox. So every time this person releases something, you get an email telling you it's out there type of thing. So it's... I knew, like, I am so resistant to anything new because I'm like, do I really need a new, like,
another
screw that?
It's
like, last thing I ever want. Substack worked for me, though. It was fun. It's
I'll specifically to you.
Sweet. I'll send you
I'm definitely going to do that. Please do.
Yeah,
but specifically in the same type of realm as when you went to Wondery.
Oh,
and you were doing all your podcasts, and then you started going to Wondery. And I was like, man, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm like, in the same, like, I'm not trying to find another... I'm not trying to find another way of getting into a bunch of stuff. I'll just stick to Spotify and go from here.
Right.
And
that was actually a funny thing because it's like when they pitched to me like, we'll offer you X amount of money, more than I've ever seen, to go behind the paywall. I was like, I don't really want to do it. And I struggled with that for like a while.
Sure.
My daughter was 9 at the time, and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, no. Fuck this, don't do it. I'm like, sure. It's like, because it's pretty good money, I could use it. And she's like,
how do you like Italy?
No. And she's like, okay, then it's no. So I did tell them no.
Oh, okay.
And then a week later, they come back and they're like, twice as much as we offered you before. And so I was like, I went to my daughter and I was like, let me explain how many Barbies that is. Like, she was like, you know what? Now it's fine.
And the podcast the other day, he said, it did buy me a nice house in Ojai.
There you go.
And so I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And just for reference, I would sell anything right now to do behind a paywall for a large amount of money. Throw it out there. Wondery, Amazon. I'll sell my soul. I'll fucking quit the union, dude. I'll join Jeff Bezos right now, dude.
What is it, a Monsanto sponsorship?
I work for Bayer.
That, by the way, killed me. I had like somebody sponsor an episode episode of the podcast, and I was like, it's some college, whatever. That's cool. And then I realized it's like I start getting all these emails from listeners who are like, dude, what the hell is this sponsor? And I look and I'm like, oh shit.
What was it?
And it was like a super right-wing thing. And then I was like, and then one day I get this message that's like, these guys want to sponsor for a whole year. They'll pay you every month for a whole year. And I was like, no, can do.
Yeah.
No,
You know,
full
that's
year's too
not
much,
no, even because like I did one because I honestly didn't pay attention.
Sure, yeah.
But like now I'm like, I'm not gonna put something that's ultra divisive that like, that's what we need in US. More raising the temperature of people hating each other.
You're already mad before the podcast got started.
And your podcasts are not those podcasts. Your podcast is so open to just a great conversation or just a great story about what's going on throughout history.
Anyway, so just to wrap it up, man, I really, really appreciate you coming in. I think if John's going to kill me if I don't do this, thank you so much, John, the Rev Jensen, for putting us together.
Yes, indeed.
And I really don't want him to kill me. So.
No, it would be bad for your health.
It'd be bad.
Yeah, I'd like to watch.
This motherfucker keeps trying to get me involved in all sorts of shit.
Really?
Yeah, he's trying to sign me up for Muay Thai matches.
Good idea.
No,
Great idea.
I'm 42 years old. But it's been an absolute pleasure sitting down with you, man.
Yes.
Seriously.
Thank you so much. This was fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
All right, guys, this podcast is sponsored by Dead Man's Beard Co. Check it out. If you want a free, easy way to support it, please just do all the free things. Hit the review, like, subscribe, bullshit, all that stuff. Otherwise, check out the Patreon. This episode goes up a couple days early. And have a great week.
Peace.
Bye.
Love you guys.